The relationship between the United States and China is one of the most important in the world. It is a complex relationship, marked by both cooperation and competition. The two countries are major economic partners, but they also have very different political systems and values. This can make it difficult for them to see eye to eye on many issues. Despite a brief period of optimism following a summit between their leaders in late 2023, the relationship remains tense. The re-election of Donald Trump as U.S. President in 2024 has further exacerbated tensions. The U.S. and China are trying to navigate a difficult path, balancing their own interests with the need to cooperate on global challenges. The relationship between the U.S. and China is often described as a delicate dance. Both sides need to be careful not to step on each other's toes. There are areas where they can work together, but there are also areas where they will likely continue to disagree. The future of the relationship is uncertain, but it is clear that the U.S. and China will need to find a way to coexist peacefully if they want to avoid conflict. The stakes are simply too high for anything else. There are a number of areas where the U.S. and China have clashed in recent years. Trade is one major area of disagreement. Former President Trump imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, and the Biden administration has kept many of these tariffs in place. The U.S. is concerned about China's trade practices, which it argues are unfair to American businesses. Taiwan is another major point of contention. China views Taiwan as a breakaway province, while the U.S. has committed to helping Taiwan defend itself. The U.S. has increased arms sales to Taiwan, and China has responded with increased military activity around the island. This raises the risk of military conflict, particularly given the potential for miscommunication between the two superpowers. Technology is another area where the U.S. and China are competing fiercely. The U.S. is concerned about China's growing technological prowess, and it has taken steps to limit China's access to sensitive technologies. For example, the U.S. has imposed restrictions on the export of semiconductors to China. These restrictions are designed to slow down China's progress in developing advanced technologies like artificial intelligence. The U.S. and China also disagree on issues related to ideology and human rights. The U.S. is critical of China's human rights record, particularly in Xinjiang and Hong Kong. China views this as interference in its internal affairs. These ideological differences make it difficult for the two countries to find common ground on a range of issues. Finally, the U.S. is concerned about China's growing military power. China has been rapidly modernizing its military in recent years, and it now has the world's largest navy. The U.S. is trying to maintain its military superiority in the region, but this is becoming increasingly challenging. The risk of a miscalculation or accident leading to conflict is a real concern. Despite the many challenges, there are still some areas where the U.S. and China can cooperate. Climate change is one such area. Both countries are major emitters of greenhouse gases, and they both have a vested interest in addressing climate change. In 2024, the two countries announced a joint initiative to reduce emissions. This was a small but positive step in the right direction. Global governance is another area where the U.S. and China could potentially work together. The two countries are both members of key international organizations, such as the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. They could cooperate on issues such as global health security, nuclear non-proliferation, and cybersecurity. However, such cooperation would require both sides to be willing to compromise and find common ground. The U.S. and China are also economically interdependent. China is America's largest trading partner, and the U.S. is a major market for Chinese goods. This economic interdependence gives both countries an incentive to avoid conflict. However, it is important to note that China is also actively working to reduce its dependence on the U.S. market by diversifying its trading relationships with other countries. While finding areas of cooperation is crucial, it's equally important to manage the competition between the U.S. and China responsibly. This means setting clear rules and expectations for behavior and avoiding actions that could escalate tensions. It also means maintaining open lines of communication to prevent misunderstandings and miscalculations. The future of the U.S.-China relationship is uncertain. Some experts believe that the two countries are headed for a new Cold War, while others believe that they will find a way to manage their differences and coexist peacefully. The outcome will likely depend on a number of factors, including the domestic political situations in both countries, the global economic environment, and the actions of other major powers. One possible scenario is that the US and China will continue to muddle through with periods of cooperation interspersed with periods of tension. This is perhaps the most likely scenario in the near term. Another possibility is that the two countries will manage to achieve a détente. This would involve a reduction in tensions and an increase in cooperation on issues of mutual interest, such as climate change and global health. However, there is also a risk that the relationship could deteriorate further, leading to a new Cold War. This would be a dangerous outcome for both countries and for the world. It would lead to a more divided and unstable world, with an increased risk of conflict. It is essential for the US and China to find a way to manage their relationship peacefully. The world is watching and the stakes are high.